training the next generation of care farmers. And we're also going to be highlighting research about what's been done on the benefits of care farming. Since one of our goals is to increase awareness around care farming by introducing people in the United States to this concept, what care farming consists of and its benefits, we thought that this would be a great topic for April. And so I'm excited to welcome our first presenter. Sarah Himmelheber is the Associate Professor of Social Work at Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. I will say personally, I had the great privilege of attending her recent class on care farming, and I am so glad that she is joining us today to talk more about her class and her students and her research. So with that, welcome, Sarah. And you should be able to share your screen. Let me know if you have any issues with the old tech stuff.
Well, thank you, Kate and Andrea and everyone here from the Care Farming Network and everyone here joining. I'm so happy to be with you all this afternoon and to just feel so much energy around this work. And as Kate said, I'm a social worker and I teach at Warren Wilson College, which is a tiny little school in the mountains of Western North Carolina. We have about 600 students and about 1,100 acres. So we like to say, over an acre per student. So they have a good chance to spread out and get to know the land and build a lot of relationship with it. And so it was when I had a sabbatical about a year and a half ago. I was taking some classes in horticultural therapy, and I did the certificate program in horticultural therapy to just bring in for me, a new dimension to what has been kind of my orientation to social work, which is just intersections between the human and natural environment, or the social and natural environment. And looking for, opportunities to really address needs that go unmet, and also do things simultaneously, provide stewardship to the land, and also work to support folks in building wellness and building skills. So when I was in one of those horticultural therapy classes, I first read the term care farming and, immediately was distracted from class and had to be Googling all about it. So I was very interested in working at a college, especially where we have a 300-acre working farm. And our students were a work college. So all of our students have jobs on campus, and many of them work in the farm, in the garden, in the forest. So I knew that this had a lot of potential for Warren Wilson, and as a social worker, I'm always looking to expand my knowledge of what are the kinds of adjunctive therapies or non-traditional therapies, and how they speak really differently to people's needs. So that's a little bit of background about me. And then the sort of catalyst for the course, in all that Googling about care farming, a few names kept coming up for me. So one of those was Dr. Jan Hassink, and another one was Marjolein Ellings. And those are both researchers in care farming from the Netherlands. And so one of the things that we do at Warren Wilson is take students on study abroad courses. So I started thinking about a course in care farming where we could learn just what does that mean, and how might we use some of our campus resources, because one of the things about our college, as well as being a work college, students also have what we call a community engagement commitment. So they are required, as a part of their graduation requirements, to be involved in the community at different levels throughout their time, sort of irregardless of their major. So I did a little cold emailing of Dr. Hassink and got a reply. And so I started building this class to be a study abroad class to the Netherlands. So how this course works is the semester, which is rapidly coming to a close, is on campus, and we go through and we got to meet with Kate. We got to think about care farming domestically, looked at some of the research, basic populations that are served by care farms traditionally. And then we are going to travel after the semester ends to the Netherlands and stay on a care farm there called Neurobiology. And my students are going to volunteer there for a week and then gallivant around the Netherlands for a few days too. So I'm going to pull up these slides, and yeah, if there are any questions, I'm just going to kind of go through what we're doing in this class. And
Sarah, I had a question. What were the name of those two researchers?
Sure. Jan, Jan Hassink, Hassink, and Marjolein Ellings, Elings.
Thanks. I have to look at their stuff.
Yeah, it's really, and one of the things that Professor Ellings has done is she is working on she's put together a textbook for care farming in higher education. So it's really very specific and targets a lot of probably, I would say predominantly like social work majors, and it does seem to kind of have that tilt to it, but she's really kind of a land and food security researcher. Kate, even though I did so well in the practice, I'm having a little trouble finding where the slides have gone.
Oh, gotcha. Let's see. So you know where the share screen is, but do you need to maybe make your Zoom screen smaller so you can see your browser?
Probably. I think I probably just have too many things pulled up, and so it looks like bananas.
Would you like me to share them instead?
That would be great.
Okay.
I'll try and.
All right, and people can see that?
All right, yes, thank you so much.
You bet.
So yeah, this is the title of my course on growing resilience, care farming in the Netherlands. And I have told you a little bit about the sort of why that course happened and how it started. This will be my first time teaching it. I'm still very new to care farming. So in many ways, I really am learning right alongside the students. So these are the course objectives, and we try to keep things pretty experiential at Warren Wilson. And so we've been doing a good bit of tours of places in our region in Western North Carolina that whether or not they call themselves care farms, they're using some of these practices and really sort of prioritizing different goals for their farm outside of production. One of the terms that students have started using and is in some of the literature is multifunctional agriculture. So I do have a good little handful of sustainable ag students in that class, and they've had a lot of interesting comments on the sort of paradigm shift that's happening for them with thinking about a way to farm, a way to do farm work without being production oriented, and yet still producing. And so that term of multifunctional agriculture, I think, has hit some of them just right. So we have looked at the history and development of care farming, especially in the Netherlands. And even though the Netherlands, I think, is really clearly a world leader in sort of number of care farms and also social structures that allow for the proliferation and success of care farms. And they've gone from I think just a few hundred care farms in the late 90s to over 1,400 care farms today in a country the size of the state of Maryland. So we've looked at some of that development, and some of that has been really interesting to also be learning about the care farming network and this network and its development, with the sort of beginning around farms that are really working with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That was really similar in the Netherlands, that development, and then the expansion to really farms that work with other populations as well. And one of the recent articles by Dr. Hosink that my class read was the expansion into more urban centers, so more urban farming that is using the care farming model, and more farms that are linked with the educational system. And so then as a social worker, I want my students to understand like who is appropriate for care farms, and how might we use the same kinds of tasks to support folks with different sorts of treatment needs or different strengths. And we focused on population groups like people with severe and persistent mental illness, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, folks with trauma histories, folks with addiction history, and then a little bit about older adults. And then students were really introduced to thinking about how we want to show effectiveness in a model that is outside of the traditional practices. And then one of the first things we want to understand are what are the theories that are undergirding this model. So we took a look at a variety of theories, from things like attention restoration theory and sort of basic mindfulness theories, and into biophilia and stress reduction theories. And then they have started to think about, all right, another piece that's experiential in the course is our work experience sessions. So we go and work in the garden, work on our farm. We did a little fence repair session. And then we break down those tasks and think about with X, Y, or Z population, how would I use this kind of a task in a care farming setting? How would it look different? How might I break down and explain the work? How might I frame the work? In what populations might it be appropriate to focus on the kind of applied mindfulness aspect? When might it be appropriate to bring in some metaphors? And how much time do we spend processing versus working? And what are the kind of signs that we want to be tuned into when doing these tasks in groups? And then we also, one of the big goals of the class is for students to understand all of these kinds of pieces of what care farming is, so that they can bring together their ideas and suggest to the college some ways to bring community into our farming spaces and begin some programming. So that those are kind of the course objectives. I don't know if there are any questions about any of that. We did a number of field trips in the class. So this is the picture of my students when we visited it's called Black Mountain Home for Children. So at Warren Wilson, we are right between Asheville, North Carolina, and Black Mountain, North Carolina, and in a little town called Swannanoa. And this is a farm in Black Mountain, and it's therapeutic foster care. So they have a lot of animals. They have, but their animals are really about companionship. They're not raising animals for meat. They do have chickens for eggs, but what they really are using their animals for is for quiet spaces for therapists to bring kids down to the farm and have something for those kids to focus on, and a sort of intermediary for them to de-stress and have some space outside, have space with animals. They have goats and donkeys, friendly petting zoo type animals. And here's one of those work experience sessions that we ran in class. So these are all my students here, and we are putting in some new beds for herbs. And so one of the interesting things that students, when they wrote their reflection papers after this work experience, really commented on was the opportunity to link a task like digging up grass and weeds and installing mulch between the beds, and linking it to things like making the salves that the herbs go into, making the tea blends that some of these herbs, contribute to, and thinking about, well, with what kinds of groups would that be a real key factor in explaining and kind of bringing folks into the work, and when would we want to focus just on, the sort of energy piece around, getting this done.
I think that might be the slides that we've got here. So
yeah, well, thank you guys so much. I'm more than happy to take questions. I also am happy to, I have all of my course materials in a Google Drive, so it's very shareable. If anybody's interested in the readings, the assignments, I don't know why you would be interested in that, but any of those materials, please let me know. I'm happy to share those.
thank you, Sarah. All right, and our next presenter is Becca Calisi Rodríguez, who's the Associate Professor of Neurobiology, Physiology, and Behavior at UC Davis. And she also launched the Green Care Lab, which is committed to providing multiple opportunities for undergrads and recent alumni to learn about, benefit from, and contribute to scientific research on green care. So hello, Becca.
Hi. Hi, thanks so much for having me, Kate and Andrea, and hello, network. Sarah, I have so many things I want to ask you, but I know we can wait till later. So just so you know, I want to exchange materials. All right, let me see. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Share screen. Let's do it. All right. Tell me, where's my little presentation? There we go. No, I can't. Okay. All right, what are y'all seeing? Are you seeing the presentation? Because I have 3 screens up right now, so I always get confused which screen you're seeing.
I think we might be seeing some odd view of a presentation.
Okay. I got this. 1 second.
We were
You
seeing
share.
the presenter view.
Presenter view, yeah.
Okay. Oh,
So I think if you
I don't
go
have
up
any
into
notes, so
slideshow at the top there.
let's try this. Okay. Do this. Oh.
Still this.
Hi. Okay.
So Becca, see
Don't
up in
worry.
the, yeah, you're almost there, right there on slideshow in the menu.
Oh, right. To mirror.
And that should, when you click, there you go. Oh,
What the? I don't know. I don't know, but give me
Or
1
maybe you-
second. If not, I can just talk through it. Chihuahua. Okay. So we're gonna do
Not the presenter view, but the first one. Play
This
from
one here?
start, maybe?
Can y'all see that?
Yep.
there we go, perfect.
Hey! Now I know this, hopefully it's not on a timer, but if it is, I'll just backtrack. All right, try to go through this fast. So hello, everyone. I am living in Northern California right now, but I'm originally from Texas. If anyone's familiar, from Starr County, Texas. And it's right on the border, the Mexican border. I grew up there. This is a picture of my grandmother's hacienda. And there I am, the güerita. In my father's Italian and light skinned. So I was always like the light skinned one in the family in the blue and white shirt. And my cousin Cristina and I just, I ran around barefoot in the dirt all day. It was wonderful. These are some of my tios, and I come from a very strong community. They also had a ranch, Las Gladiolas Ranch. It was about 1,000 acres, and it was dedicated to raising Santa Gertrudis cattle for meat and for milk. So I grew up on this ranch, horseback riding with the cattle, and it was a wonderful childhood. But then I went to college to study art. So everyone always thinks I started off as a biologist. No, I got my degree in art, and I was very cool artist, charcoal nudes. I was very, very hip, not at all like I am now. But after I graduated, not really sure what I was going to do, how I was going to support myself on doing art. I actually got a job at the Dallas Zoo. They needed a muralist to paint a huge mural on the side of their education house. And this is sadly the best picture I have of it, but it's huge. So this is scaled to size. I was about that big. And I painted this large mural. They asked of an active African savanna scene. And it took me months and months to do. So it particularly took me a long time because I'm a procrastinator, and I love to go behind the scenes of the zoo and meet the animals. And I grew up around the animals, and they have a very huge education program at the zoo. So I'm not typically a fan of zoos, but that's a discussion for another time. Anyway, here there were lots of researchers, and they had me volunteer to be on their research projects. So it was kind of my first exposure to research. Found out I had a knack for it, went across the street to get a master's, and that then opened up a bunch of possibilities. I never wanted to be a professor. I never wanted to be an academic at all. But what ended up happening is I didn't actually come from a lot of money. I didn't really have a safety net. And I ended up getting a full ride to UC Berkeley to get a Ph.D. So I thought, okay, why not? I've never been to California. That sounds fun. So this is what ended up happening. I specialize in animal behavior, reproductive, and stress neurobiology. So how the brain is active in helping animals, including humans, reproduce, and how stress messes with that whole system. So in 2010, I got my PhD at Berkeley, doing just what I said, and I worked mostly on captive bird models as my model. So 2010 through 2013, I did a postdoc internship. That's kind of like a residency if you're like a doctor, medical doctor. And I studied brain surgery during that time. So in 2014 to 2015, I was my first year. I got hired as an assistant professor of biology at Columbia University. And while I love New York City for the cultural scene, I had my daughter with me, who was only like 2 at the time. And it was really hard for us to get the exposure to nature that satisfied me. I know that many people can do it there. So when Northern California came a calling, UC Davis recruited me to come back here. And I ended up getting tenure here, and yay. In 2019, this is just to show you that my career, before my career completely changed, it was going so great. In 2019, I was awarded the National Science Foundation Career Award for my research, which was $2 million to be given to my research in over 5 years, which was the highest award they'd given at that time to any researcher. So I was just flying high, but I was incredibly burned out. I ended up hated what I was studying. While I was very interested in veterinary medicine and the like, I had to kill birds to look at the brains. And that never sat right morally with me, no matter how, ethically we did it and non-invasively, or, it just never sat right with me. So I was already burned out. And then the pandemic happened and it changed everything. So when I use the word burnout, I mean it from the medical sense. I had a lot of major health problems that were happening. So burnout, the WHO, the World Health Organization, categorizes burnout as a syndrome that results from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. That was me. So I'm sure everyone is aware that during the pandemic, there was a huge increase in the prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide. And as I mentioned, I was already suffering from academic burnout. So I ended up taking a 1-year leave from the university to homeschool my kids, because they were, and this was literally homeschool. We went, away from doing the online school, because that didn't sit well with me either. So I was very fortunate that I could do that with my job. But as an academic, the pandemic pressure cooker and the burnout eventually led to many problems within my home. I ended up getting divorced during this time, which is another huge stress. And it was very amicable, actually. We're good friends, and he lives across the way, and it's good co-parenting. So don't be too sad for me. But a lot of really stress, even the best divorce is not a happy divorce in my case, I guess. So during this time, I just felt lost. I was completely lost. I was completely unsatisfied with my work life, not sure what to do. I went back to my roots, back to the ranch. There was this ranch in the outskirts of West Davis, the town I live in, that needed a ranch hand. So I answered the ad for the ranch hand, and my resume, which was just me telling them I grew up on a ranch and I spent the last year homeschooling my kids. So I didn't tell them, I was a professor or anything like that, because I didn't want them to think I was crazy. So I spent the next months working for, I think it was like $14.50 an hour, weed whacking and doing odd jobs. And y'all, I was never happier. I got to bring my kids sometimes to work, and it was an incredibly healing experience. And it changed my life. And that's when I discovered, not only is nature powerful, but people study this. And I had to know more. So I started going down this research rabbit hole of understanding the power of nature and the science behind the therapeutic benefits. So numerous studies, as we know, have documented the evidence of the positive influence of exposure to the natural environment of human health and well-being. Why won't it let me advance? I was just getting there. I was just getting to the good part. There we go. Okay. Weird. All right. Pardon me, everyone. All right. So as we were talking about, there's scientific backing to how different aspects of nature, in this case, we're talking about care farming, right? But there's lots of different forms of interactions with nature for therapeutic benefits, and how it can reduce depression, anxiety, improve concentration, attention and cognitive restoration, increase your level of satisfaction with your life and your quality of life in general. So these positive effects are so well recognized, it's now becoming more trendy, thank goodness, for doctors to increasingly issue nature prescriptions to help treat a range of conditions. And I included a resource there if anyone's interested in learning more about that. So instead of studying how stress is bad for your brain, which is what I'd been doing for 15 plus years, I wanted to switch that and turn it into studying how to help people overcome the stressors that they've been enduring. So I want to use my background training as a neurobiologist, stress physiologist, and animal behaviorist to understand how and why certain aspects of nature heal us, both mentally and physically. So not even a year has gone by. I'm still a baby in this as well, learning about it. But I jumped into the deep end and I founded the Green Care Lab, is what I've called it, this past summer. This is at Pine Trails Ranch in West Davis, because what ended up happening is that in like 6 months, someone on payroll discovered that I was actually a professor, and I'm a host for a National Geographic series as well, and so it's easy to find me on the internet. So when they found out, there were all these discussions, and actually with the owners who had owned this ranch, this 22-acre ranch, horse ranch, for 30 plus years, it was with them that I figured out that I could be in the area that I loved and do something that I felt was of great importance and timeliness right now with their help. So with their help, they allowed me to take a couple acres of their ranch, and the ranch is only 22 acres, right? So it's not that big. So somehow they believed in me, and I have my green care lab out there right now. And we're dedicated to uncovering the science behind how and why certain experiences in natural surroundings are therapeutic, strengthening and educating individuals and diverse communities through scientifically backed and widely accessible natural interventions to manage stress and support healthy lifestyles. And this is my team all around me. I just adore them. So PhD students, a lot of undergraduate students, and this is small. My old lab had almost 30 people as staff in it or trainees. So we're starting small, but I hope to grow this in a way that really nurtures undergraduate research and education, because that is what is very meaningful to me. So right now, in this very short time, we have 3 projects going. This is Claire and Nora, 2 of my students, and they're asking what aspects of pig interactions and husbandry are therapeutic and why. So looking at particulars. Then we have Jessie. She's studying how can mother-son equine dyads, like mother-son pairs, how can they be used to support parent-child relationships? And using a portable EEG monitor to measure brain waves, we're understanding how connectedness happens with these mother-son equine dyads and how we can support that. And then we also have more of a farming, gardening aspect to this. This is Dahlia and Elizabeth, and they are studying how can the incorporation of personal culture broaden and increase the therapeutic benefits from farm practices. And to end here, because I don't want to take up too much time so we can talk, I've been teaching a course called Science for Social Justice, where it's an undergraduate course where undergrads learn about how different aspects of science, so not just being, for example, a medical doctor, but how different scientific fields can contribute to supporting social justice. And each year I offer a specific topic to focus on. Last year we focused on the pandemic. This year, what do you think I wanted to focus on? I want to use this as a way to learn more about green care as I went along with the students, like Sarah's saying. So our special concentration this year was the science behind nature-based therapeutic practices known as green care and how they can be used to reduce health-related inequities. In this class, students are learning about green care practices, including care farming is a big part of it, the link between nature and human health, how social inequities negatively impact human health and well-being, and how green care can be implemented to reduce these negative impacts. So just briefly, so you know what this course kind of contains, I don't like to give exams. Exams are shown to actually not be good for students or retention. So I give little quizzes throughout. We have the quarter system. So 10 weeks, 1 quiz a week. And for the students to support accountability in their preparation for each class, to encourage their physical and mental presence and vigilance during the class, and most importantly, because this method is shown to support incremental growth or knowledge base, building this layered foundation to enhance retention and future usage. They have 2 big projects. Here's the first one, class experiment project. Because this is a science course and they're getting, their science general education credits for it, scientific method, learning the scientific method is very important. So I do that using green care as, the canvas. So the class experiment this time, in groups, the students would work together on designing an experiment to investigate the relationship of green care, any type of green care they learned about in class, and mental health. Then the groups, once that's all done, this is over a series of weeks, they present their experiment to the class, and the class votes on the best one. And then when we have the one experiment, all the students in the class will individually carry out this experiment and collect data on their own. And then I, and do a big data reveal on the last day of the course. And we can talk more about what they did this year, if you're interested. And then their final project is the Special Interest Research and Presentation Project. Again, students group up and they identify a social inequity or an injustice barrier in our society to an underserved or vulnerable group's health or well-being. They will group it according to interest, who's interested in studying what group. And then they will research, present, and propose a green care intervention. They'll lead and design a class discussion or activity to support the knowledge retention after they do this presentation. Okay, I don't want to go over time, but that's just a quick window into this very, very exciting year that has been occurring. And if you want to learn more about us, please visit greencarelab.ucdavis.edu. And my students run Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Okay, so it's all Green Care Lab except Instagram. I was told that they have to put I forget what you call, underneath there. So please look us up and support my students by, I don't know, joining or whatever you call it. I'm not very good on social media. Thank you for your attention. Happy with Sarah to answer questions and try to unshare for you.
Oh man, thank you both.
Stop share. Okay.
Yes. So we are absolutely, if anyone has any questions, you don't have to put it into the chat. You can simply just unmute yourself and ask. Maybe we give folks a chance to think about those. I'm curious, kind of going back to the research. Sarah, you had mentioned a couple researchers, and Becca, when we talked, you had explained how you can find some of that research. I'm bringing this up as, thinking about ways that care farms can use research, either for marketing purposes, funding purposes. We have to show the value and the data and the benefits. Can you give some examples? And I'll also note and put it in the chat that we are keeping a resource page at Care Farming Network too. So.
Did you want to answer that, Sarah? I feel like it was, or.
Oh, was that to me? I'm sorry. I thought that was to Becca.
Sorry, either or, either and.
Sure. I think one of so to find research, I think if you have a university in the area, sometimes the university has access to databases that are, just allow for easier search then. But starting on something like Google Scholar is really helpful. And being able to, if you are interested in like a certain population focus, having that in the search terms, as well as some of the terms that Becca said, like green care, horticultural therapy is where I started in the research piece. And so I have a good bit of research kind of or literature knowledge in that area. And then the care farming is really kind of like a sister, and so a lot of horticultural therapists might be, working with care farms. They might be doing care farming and not knowing that they are, because I think in the US it's still really just an underused term. And, so really the Care Farming Network is doing so much to build understanding about this work that is happening. But I think green care is a great search term, and looking for your population specifically. And a lot of these studies are qualitative, or they're pilot studies, or they're smaller studies. And so sometimes replication of the same study can be a great way to build knowledge. I think looking for university partners, and, Becca said you have PhD students, like graduate students are often looking for projects, and so I think there's an opportunity there to really build original research, looking for ways to replicate research that is showing promise, showing promising results, that might be kind of at that pilot level, or using sometimes findings from qualitative research to then influence kind of maybe what variables you're gonna look at in the next step. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Becca, did you want to chime in there? I also see that Gracie has her hand up, and Gracie from Texas, I should say.
Yeah. Can I just real quick? Somebody asked in the chat, why mother son and not mother daughter dyads? It's because all of our animals are rescued. I didn't say that, but the entire ranch is rescue animals, and so we kind of are using what we have, and we happen to have 2 equine mother-son dyads. So that, but we're studying for humans parent-child, so it doesn't have to be a particular sex or gender. It's just that we only have 2 mothers and their sons,
see.
donkey pair and equine. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Gracie, your question.
Can you hear me now? Did I
We sure
unmute?
can. Yep.
Okay. My question is related to the answer that was just given about connecting as a research project, or whatever the word would be, as a location for research, and with our residents and workers at Hearthfire Farm near Blanco, Texas. Hi, Becca, not that far. But okay, so I can do all of the things that you suggested, and I've already started connecting with students in terms of their community volunteer hour credit things. But I do want to connect more with students in a particular area, so they might be researching this. But I'm wondering how also to connect with the work that Becca and Sarah are doing, to kind of as an adjunct to that, if that would be possible in some way, because I think that will strengthen, the relationship with local students. If there's not, which as far as I know, there's not anything similar to that in the various local colleges, but there could easily be. But I think it would really help us to be able to connect, or to say, we're also in touch with this curriculum, which we can get, of course, but some direct connection between people who are doing this research and students from the area universities, close to where I am. So are y'all able to do that, or willing to do that, and what would I do to make that happen?
I'm so sorry. I didn't fully understand. Are we willing to do what exactly?
Well, I don't know what it would be exactly called, some kind of collaboration between what you're doing and what area, Central Texas college students might do at our location. That doesn't make sense?
I think maybe like a guest speaking, sharing resources. I think those things, I know I would be happy to do that. And looking maybe for, sometimes it's hard to know, like, Becca and I are from different departments and different kind of disciplines. And there are, with something that's really so inherently interdisciplinary, like care farming, I think you have a lot of opportunity to just find the person who's interested in the work, and then they're going to see that work from their disciplinary angle, and they're going to bring a lot into it. But, I think, having a good number of options there, I would be happy to, if you have someone that you're speaking with at a college or university that's close to you, that wants a guest speaker, that wants an example, that wants a draft of a syllabus, I think all those things I would be more than happy to share. And I'm going to put a link to the textbook, which is totally available online and is called Social Farming in Higher Education, Teaching and Learning Materials at the University Level Course. And that's from the folks in the Netherlands. And I'm going to share that in the chat.
I want that, yeah.
And
Yes,
also, I didn't get this text until way after I planned my course. So I am actually not using this text as a textbook in my course. My course is kind of a series of threaded articles and all of that. So, but this I think is a really interesting way to think about the direction for social farming or care farming in higher ed, because it's that's its mission.
Sarah, I'm wondering, I know there's a few people here that are
representing care farms that are probably looking for summer interns or people coming out of college. Where are your students going to find jobs? Like, what sites should people be posting, you know, their jobs on for university students?
We have a specific site called Handshake. I don't know why it's called that, but has anyone heard of that?
We use Handshake too.
Okay, yeah. It's called Handshake, and you can open up particular. It's good for that kind of thing. It'll take you down the road of, you know, who you want to attract and from where you want to attract them, and yeah, it's pretty good for connecting with university students.
Yeah, I think it's the way our career development folks introduced it to our faculty was like, it's like Indeed, but specifically for colleges and for, you know, for recent college grads. That's kind of a new-ish, probably newish platform. And we use that. I think some students still, you know, use just kind of different social media to find jobs, and they still use Indeed. They do use our college job board, although I think the college is trying to help transition them more onto Handshake.
There, I just put the link in the it says join joinhandshake.com/employers. Because be careful, there's also a Handshake that's for students, right? So if you want to attract them, then go to the student one will be very confusing. So just go to the employer one.
Anyone else have any questions or anything for you to share with what's going on in your organization that's relevant? Just people here to listen today.
I'm
Oh.
always good for a question.
Hi, Woody.
I'm curious, as I've often thought there's a need sort of in the literature out there for a textbook that just does, like, say 10 or 20 vignettes of care farms across the country. Do you know of anyone doing that, or would that be something that somebody should do?
I don't know of anyone doing that.
And go travel around and do some, you know, story on each one that has a common thread, or would that be helpful, or does the internet do that for us?
There is a group in, I think it's England, doing something similar to that, not as a book form, but as videos that they put on their website. And they go around from care farm to care farm to care farm and interview the owners and interview some of the individuals participating, if possible, and video the care farm and show what kinds of programs they've got available and whatnot. And I've forgotten, of course, the name of the organization that does that, but I have seen several of their videos, and it does just what you're talking about. And they did it most likely because there is value to it.
Yeah, I'm curious what the professors. Yeah, what are your students? What are they needing to gain a better base so that they're really are ready to go to work for one of our care farms here in the United States?
Well, I think what you said would be amazing to really, because when we talk about care farming, because for the US, it's more of a newer concept, it's kind of hard to conceptualize what that means, because it's not just one thing, it's a whole world in and of itself. So I think your idea of doing vignettes of how things work at different care farms with, you know, a string between them all about how they all relate to each other. I think that's awesome. That would be a text that I'd keep in my lab's library.
There might be an opportunity as well for it to kind of flip that idea on its head a little bit, to ask some students to, partner with Care Farming Network and interview care farms and take your beautiful map that you have and create kind of a story map from that, so that you're not just getting information about where the farm is and who they serve, but a little bit more of background and those pieces that help students and the broader community, understand what's going on at the farm and how they might replicate that work, how they might support the work, how they can get involved.
I like that idea. I think having the next generation doing the work, going out there and shaking hands and doing the interviews, and yeah. Well, thank you. Anybody's welcome to steal that idea, please.
Well, I'll say this year, this is my first time teaching the care farming course, and it is a study abroad course. So we have a lot of focus on the development in the Netherlands and European nations. And there are, of course, these same practices going on around the world, and certainly in the US. And so next year I've proposed kind of a similar course, but it would be domestically focused. So I would hope to grow our partnership with Care Farming Network, and maybe we can tackle that story map.
Cool.
So along those lines, from Sarah talking about the student's perspective, so we actually have our students, our undergraduates run a blog, and I'm putting the link here, that kind of gives their day-to-day perspective as we start to create this research hub at this ranch. So I just put it in the comments there. And yeah, that's just, I really love hearing from that somebody else cares and everybody else thinks it's cool from the undergraduate's point of view. So they're really highly encouraged to write about their experiences. You check that out.
Dustin,
Hey everybody, I'm Dustin Watkins. I'm from Bittersweet Farms. This is my first meeting, so great to be here. A very good meeting. I just wanted to share that we have a book that was just published. I did not write this, but a psychologist that has actually been on our board, worked with us for a while, wrote this book called Creating Quality of Life for Adults on the Autism Spectrum. If you're not familiar with Bittersweet, we were the first farm-based program for people with autism in the United States. We were founded in 1983, so we're having our 40th anniversary. But the book is more of a program evaluation. It touches on some of the research to support all the great things that we've been talking about today, but kind of more of a follow along of our participants when they came in, many of them 40 years ago, where they're at today, the outcomes and benefits that they've had from participating in the program. So I will put a link in the chat. It's published by Routledge, so I'm sending that now, but just wanted to share that and say hi and welcome, or I'm happy to be joining the group and really enjoyed the discussion today. So thank you.
That's awesome. I look for stuff like this all the time. We're totally going to buy it for the lab.
Awesome. Thanks.
yeah, that is great. Dustin, I'm just curious, are you aware of any other literature out there similar to what's been published for Bittersweet?
No, not really. There was a book about Bittersweet written about 15, 20 years ago that just needed to be updated, but it's a good primer. It was written by Jane Gadan, and she had written another book about European farmstead communities. So you may be familiar with Jane Gadan, but actually the research that was shared today is exciting me a lot. So I look forward to digging into that, and we need it. And sounds like we're finally getting the due attention that we deserve.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we've been talking about how we can continue to build out the resource page, knowing that what we've got on the website is just the tip of the iceberg. So stay tuned for having a better dissemination there of what is out there, or at least how to get to it. I know that Google Scholar we were introduced to, which is kind of a neat thing. So I know we're getting close to the end of time here. I just wanted to say that after all of our monthly member gatherings, we do a blog post, which has a link to this presentation, but also will include all of the links that are shared or discussed during the presentation. So I will make sure that I get to that hopefully by end of day tomorrow. And you can find that on our blog. We usually link to it also in our newsletters. So with that being said, thank you so very much to Sarah and Becca for taking the time today for the work that you're doing. Really neat stuff. And it has been a pleasure hearing from you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And it's good to meet you, Sarah. We'll have to connect
Yes.
more.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for inviting me.
You bet. And we'll always have these first Thursday of every month. So we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you